If it was hot enough to melt the steel, how come they were still alive to be able to jump?
Dude, they jumped, and then the building fell hours later, or an hour or so later. So it was hot enough for them to jump, and then as the fire kept burning...
the official story said that it was thousands of degrees.
Yeah. Yeah, those people... Dude, those people that were on the thousands of degrees floors were dead instantly. The other people that were above it, as the fire kept burning, they got trapped and had to jump. That makes perfect sense.
Well, the official story said that the fires were very intense.
They were. That's what melted the steel, or softened the steel enough to make the building fall.
Hey, there's enough questions to warrant a new investigation, a new independent investigation.
Questions?
How come the firefighters' testimony on the 9/11 Commission report was not even added to the 9/11 Commission report, stating that there were explosions going on?
There probably was. There was flammable equipment in there. There was mechanical units,
John Schroeder,
and other things.
You can look it up on YouTube. John Schroeder.
That when concrete slabs are falling on top of.
Saying that he covered it up.
Really? What? What did Giuliani cover up?
Hundreds of witness testimony saying there were explosives in the building.
Are you guys all together?
I don't think that there were...
No, we just give a shit, man.
Yeah.
Unlike you.
Oh, that's funny. You don't know the first thing about me,
asshole. Why are you defending the Popular Mechanics article?
I didn't say shit about this, asshole.
The Popular Mechanics article? I read that.
Don't fuck with me. Trust me. Don't fuck with me.
Why are you defending that article when it was written by nephew of Homeland Security,
I asked you a question. Are you guys all together, or you got someone just walking by? You don't know what I think about 9/11.
I just want to hear what he says about the Popular Mechanics article.
The Popular Mechanics article was written by Benji Chertoff, who's the nephew of the head of Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff. And they fired the entire staff of Popular Mechanics article months before they printed that.
But wouldn't it make sense that you would get a guy that kind of would be able to have access to some information like that?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Like that guy. You said he's the nephew of... one of the gentlemen from Homeland Security. So wouldn't you think that somebody like that would have access to certain records and information that would give him a more accurate interpretation of what happened?
You're right. All his credentials say that, you know, he wrote high school football articles for, you know, his school paper, you know. So I would understand why they would make him the senior fact checker.
Can I just ask you one easy question then?
What's that?
Isn't it easier to say that a few fanatics got on planes and destroyed our buildings instead of this vast conspiracy involving thousands of people and logistics that are nearly impossible?
Yeah,
so
really,
isn't it
easier to say that? That's why that's what's used to.
No, it's not what's used. I'm not saying what's used. It's just what it was. Why can't it just be? Can you even accept for a second that maybe, now I won't even say indefinite, that maybe that's all it was some fanatics that blew up some of our buildings based on their hatred of our way of life?
I did. I accepted it for a few years, man. But, you know, after going into it and investigating things about it, it's clear
What
that
did you
there's things that are coming
investigate?
up.
How did you investigate?
There's
looking at
senators that are coming out
websites
saying that were part of the 9/11 Commission report saying there was a FARC. Bob Graham came out and said it was a FARC. These people have come out.
FARC. I love FARC.com.
Were the planes an illusion?
Yeah.
You know what? I want to believe the official story, but after reading parts of the 9/11 Commission report, not the whole.
I read the 9/11 Commission report. It made sense.
It didn't make sense.
It made sense. That's what happened. There wasn't this vast conspiracy.
Right, man. Well, everyone that thinks this is crazy, and you win.
Well, okay. I'm glad you could.
There's another guy.
Yes, sir. Oh, okay. One more. Yeah.
Look, you guys obviously haven't done your research.
I've done.
Wait.
Really not obviously.
Books.
I have done a lot of research.
Think about it logically. You're talking about security and faking voices or doing all this shit to hide passengers. Why not just put explosives in the garage and knock the buildings down that way?
We're not claiming to know all the answers. I mean, that's why we need.
But I'm not even saying you should know that. But I'm saying that's when you're looking at the government, the same bungling government. That, like, you know, if they were trying to do this to invade Afghanistan or Iraq, Jesus, couldn't they have come up with a better reason than leaving Colin Powell hanging with that awful uranium thing? I mean, look at how fast that story fell apart. If they were brilliant enough to pull off 9/11.
Yeah, they're too incompetent to pull off 9/11.
How could they leave Colin Powell hanging with that shitty, awful... I mean, it was an embarrassment for the U.S. government.
Look, invading Iraq wasn't the only reason that this was probably done. The whole strategy of destabilizing the Middle East And
well, we didn't need to blow the buildings
state
up
here, chipping away at our civil liberties in the United States. It's not just about one thing. The towers themselves were not profitable anymore. They were white elephants.
Well, that's another.
You know,
but dude,
when governments do things like this, it's a whole. You know,
but there's
a whole range
You're
of
giving them a lot more credit than they're due. You're giving the United States government officials a lot more credit than they're due for pulling something off like this, my friend. It was our turn. They had planned this. We fucked up as a nation who should have seen it coming, and they got us. They got us. There's no government conspiracy
Andy, I
here.
would challenge you, sir, to read some of these books that are out there.
I have read books, not the one you mentioned, but I have done a lot of research
on Pearl Harbor, the ones that lay it out step by step, because you obviously haven't done the research.
No, I have. Don't just pawn me, sir. Don't pawn me off as being ignorant because I didn't read the books you're suggesting.
Why are you ridiculing people that are trying to do something?
Did I ridicule you? We're giving you a forum. We're giving you a forum.
Roy Rowe on your show. You said he had mommy complex.
Yes, I said that. Yes,
that kid was an ass.
Mommy complex.
Yes, I did say that.
Shame on you guys.
He's changed his opinion and facts. He's looked at pictures and changed them. He's changed the pictures. It said, oh, this has no plane equipment in it. And then when people have shown plane equipment, he changed his story.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the Pentagon. Pictures with that show equipment that came from an airplane where he says no plane crash. And then the picture shows airplane equipment, and then he changes his story.
Pieces and engines in there and stuff, you know, whatever.
But I've asked you basic questions,
whatever.
Dude, I've asked you basic questions.
Why do you guys ridicule?
I've asked you basic questions about
basic
questions about why would they do it that way, and you can't answer it.
Subject. You laugh about it. You joke about it. You ridicule it.
Dude, we're giving you a forum, and I'm asking you a very serious basic question. Listen to yourself. You're being the angry young man. This is what you're doing. You're being the angry young man. No one's yelling at you. I'm asking you real questions. A gatekeeper? Dude, that's childlike rhetoric. I'm asking you real questions.
You're not taking this seriously.
Oh, see, stop. Stop with the angry young man routine. That's the rebellion against mommy that I'm talking about.
I didn't read the book you suggested.
That's the rebellion against mommy that I'm talking about.
Take your damn sunglasses
off. Look, you're right in your little bearded angry face. Oh, don't be such an angry young man.
You're
losing the argument, son. Son, you're losing the argument, and you don't like it.
I should be ashamed of myself, but not for this.
A lot more sense.
What is that? People calling their families saying that there was a terrorist had taken over the plane with, I mean, like, how do you explain that? I mean, that's a very basic question I'm asking, which is something the government could have avoided completely by just going through the garage. But when people are calling their families and they're saying, we're on this plane,
involved?
It's been taken over, how do you explain that?
Isn't there a 0.008 chance of a success rate of a call at that altitude? Didn't they do the research on that?
You can't make calls at that altitude.
They were coming down. They weren't at 30,000 feet.
They were very low, my friend.
They weren't at 30,000 feet. They were 15 minutes into the flight.
Very low.
And when they were coming down, especially for the second flight, they weren't 30,000 feet in the air when that happened.
Tops of the buildings.
You're acting like they were flying over Mount Everest. They weren't.
You can't
and
make
that statistic that you're asking. Okay, that's a clever thing that you want to talk about parroting something. Why are you not calling her out for parroting 0.008 chance of a statistic when I'm asking a very basic question, which is, I've seen family members interviewed that said, my husband called or my son called. What is your explanation that these people who had their son or their husband or their wife calling from the plane? You're throwing out a statistic. What is your explanation for how that
recorded message on a home telephone?
You don't think there's any chance whatsoever that those might have been faked? Any chance whatsoever?
Faked phone calls from family. You're talking X-Files now, though.
We're talking about... I mean, I'm trying to look at you.
That's a little intricate.
You wonder why people don't take you seriously. The phone calls were all faked. So instead of going through the garages and fucking with a few video cameras, the government faked phone calls, and yet they couldn't make Colin Powell look good. But making that shit, we saw a trailer with uranium in it, and it wasn't. And the whole theory fell apart, and the U.S. government had to change why they were in Iraq and looked like assholes. So they couldn't figure that out, but they could fake phone calls and plant bombs in the Trade Center with no one seeing. You're giving the Keystone cops a tremendous amount of credit.
Yeah.
Like, no one likes the official version. We don't like to think that we really lost 3,000 people.
Got caught with our pants down.
No one likes to think
that version sucks. Believe me, that version stinks. I would love a different version. Unfortunately, I really believe that's kind of the version.
So I'm asking you, like, and you're saying, well, those phone calls, instead of saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that would be a very difficult thing to pull off. You go with.
I can't say that it does make sense because it doesn't make sense to me.
So faked phone calls to relatives?
I don't know what the answer is, but it doesn't make sense.
Well,
to
don't
me.
you know what the answer isn't? That it's kind of hard to pull off fake phone
Yeah,
call.
you
can't just
kind of
gloss
throw
over
that one out the window as being not feasible or.
Look, I mean, I'm not saying that the planes were faked on the plane. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm not saying it's impossible not to fake phone calls. We obviously do have the technology to do such a thing.
You don't think the point I made to her about calling your relatives and faking a voice and an interpersonal relationship is a lot more complicated than blocking a signal? You don't think that's kind of a good point? Come on. Come on. Are you really going to tell me that? You're supposed to be a thinking man?
Here's what's going on. You guys are getting real nitpicky about little details and trying to call us out on this and that when there's a bigger picture here, and maybe there's some we can agree on. There's been a serious lack of media integrity.
Nitpicky?
There's been a
I'm
serious
talking about
lack
your
of media
points.
integrity
Oh.
surrounding 9/11.
You see what I'm
Can
saying?
we
This is
agree?
what I meant about the child.
I will
No.
say that there's a
Anthony?
serious lack of media integrity. Period.
Period. Okay, period.
Just period.
Okay, and especially concerning 9/11. I mean, they went on the next day touting the government's official story.
There was a lot of
there was no real investigation.
There was a lot of reports that came out prematurely. I watched that day just like everyone else did.
Serious research into this subject.
I've already talked
And-
to you. You've
and
convinced
you
me of
guys
nothing.
You guys are cowards. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be so silly.
Well,
you're being a little boy.
You're cowards.
You're being a little boy.
Because you don't want to look into this
Did mommy and daddy
seriously.
not listen to
Call
you enough,
for,
son?
You're afraid for your jobs if you start talking about 9/11.
little boy. Little
Dude,
boy,
we're
that's
afraid
not
for
the
our jobs,
truth.
but it ain't 9/11. Believe
That's
me.
not the truth. Now, and I think you know that. I'm looking. You really think
You
that we're
ridicule
afraid?
people that-
I am the one, you silly little boy who doesn't know, who screamed, "Let's get 9/11
Why are you
people on
calling me
here."
a boy?
Because you're
I'm
being a
31
little
years
boy.
old.
You called me a coward. I'll call you a little boy. Shh, take it, little bearded angry man. I get it. You're angry, man. I get it. The government's
piece of
bad.
shit.
I know I'm a piece of shit. I know. Shh. Oh, is he angry? No, be
He's a little
angry,
angry.
son. Come here, son. Be angry, little boy. Whoa! The angry young
interview
man
over.
walked away.
Aw.
Do you see? Do you see? Afraid for our jobs. I am the one that said, when we brought 9/11 people on at first, there was something about the Pentagon video I didn't like. I started talking about it on XM and said, let's get people and talk about it.
Right.
So that's just uninformed. And he's walking away, and I hope you have this on film, because he was getting his
that'll be
ass handed to him
conveniently
in an
edited out of
argument.
any web
No one
site
is
that this
screaming
goes on.
him down. He's used to
Yeah.
yelling and
Sam's
shouting
got it
and having been dragged out of things and having people go, ah, and no one's going to yell at him.
Easier
Let's not
if we
forget
got this
that,
great, intelligent government that could pull the wool over everyone's eyes.
let's not forget that Ronald Reagan did sell
Yes.
Saddam Hussein.
Absolutely.
Of course, because we're at war through them with Iran.
And by the way, we sold the Shah of Iran about 80 warplanes before the Ayatollah Khomeini took
Yeah.
over. So when the Ayatollah took over, they had 80 of our
We're great
warplanes.
at
Thank
selling
God they
weapons.
couldn't operate them.
We love selling weapons.
Believe
this
me,
country.
we've given weapons to some fucking dumb people. We're idiots. We
Believe
like
me,
to sell weapons.
We've had to shoot down our own shit.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Look, I'd love to continue this and stuff,
are
and
freezing.
we're freezing, and we got to get back to the studio.
We would
but
like to thank you for giving us the time.
Yes.
no problem. Thank Angry Young Man for us.
And
Usually
do
give
you see
yourself
hold
enough
on.
rope.
Do you see that he's sulking over there? And what happened was
so
he walked
funny.
away, and nobody cared that he
He's
walked away.
sulking.
And he's sulking. What is he? What type of a guy arguing is that?
Jimmy. It ain't about him,
sulking.
Jimmy.
No, I know that, but he's kind of like, but that to me
Jimmy,
kind of
that's not what we're here,
No,
Jimmy.
I know, but I'm saying that's kind of what's wrong with a lot of the guys that argue that point. Is that, man.
I'm cold. Why isn't there a government conspiracy that makes it warm in
I don't know.
December
Global warming.
or November or
I
whatever
know.
the
Oh, he's
fuck
got
it
the
is?
sign.
All right.
All right, well.
All right, guys,
do
thank
well,
you.
man. Stay warm.
Thanks, guys.
Jeez.
Thank you, sir.